In 2 days, the Cowboys will be wheels up to the Steel City to take on a big rivalry in the Pittsburgh Steelers. Garrett Podell from CBS Sports joining me to break down this matchup ahead. And, you know, it seems like another must-win. We keep saying that every week is a must-win for this Cowboys team, who is 2-2. This is not going to be an easy one. They got injuries, a little bit of everywhere. But let's start talking about what this offense is looking and the run game. That's been the theme also going on here.
Well, Mike McCarthy attempted to say some positive things about the run game today, but if we're being real here, there's not a whole lot to love. They're last in the NFL in rushing yards per game. The yards per carry numbers aren't much better. The committee they've decided to use with Rico Dowdle, Ezekiel Elliott, and Deuce Vaughn hasn't quite functioned well. Tony Pollard over with the Tennessee Titans, who was the featured back here a year ago, he has 246 combined rushing yards this year. The committee here, 243. So 3 or 4 guys have not been able to equal Pollard's one out in Tennessee so far this year. So that's lacking so far. And we've asked Mike McCarthy about motion rates, play action rate, elements of the offense that could make Dak Prescott's life easier. And he said, well, we're in 2-minute offense too much. We need to run the ball. At some point, Bree, I think you got to look around and say, respectfully, we just need to become a pass-first team because the run game just hasn't been working. It's only been a quarter of a season, but the results have been, to be honest, kind of ugly.
Yeah, one thing that stood out to me when you say that they chose to do this committee, running back by committee, like you said, statistically, what we're seeing, it's not working. When you're talking to Rico, when you're talking to Zeke, they kind of seem stumped as well. Like, I don't know at this point, where do you go from here? Today I saw Dalvin Cook being talked to by the media, and that, honestly, I've stopped knocking on that door because it seems like McCarthy has given us the same answer for 5 weeks straight.
I spoke to Dalvin today, and he said it's humbling. I mean, this is somebody who's 4- or 5-time Pro Bowl running back who was one of the top scrimmage yards, rushing yards leaders in football when he was with the Minnesota Vikings, and here, humbling. He's been chilling on ice on the practice squad his whole tenure here since they signed him. And he said, you know, he's been working and his body's healed because he hasn't been taking a real hit in a football game for about a year after his tenure with the New York Jets and now being with the Cowboys and ending up with the Ravens the end of last year. And, yeah, he doesn't really know. And I talked to Zeke today, and he said he's trying to be patient, team-first guy. Dak said he's been exhibiting those values in the locker room, but patience, I guess, is all they can really do because it's not been pretty through the first 4 weeks.
Yeah, maybe they're trying to save something for after the bye week. It's hard to tell, and like it just seems kind of like it needs some like glitter on top of the running back room. But what we know is working for the most part. Dak Prescott and his Ceedee Lamb fireworks, but who else is going to be stepping up this game in particular when Brandon Cooks is not available, and we don't know how long. So I think that's one thing too. So this could be longer than just a one-game thing. And Ryan Flanoy seems like to be a favorite. He might be making his NFL debut.
Yeah, I think to your point, the Dak-Ceedee combination has been working. The one time Ceedee really saw man-to-man, one-on-one coverage last week against the Giants when we were talking to Brian Schottenheimer on Monday, they lit it up. Dak saw it immediately. Shotty said, I know where the football is going. It went to Ceedee, 55-yard catch-and-run touchdown. So obviously that's working. Even though Dak, you know, to your point with the injuries and stuff, highest tight window throw percentage in the league, which means when he's trying to throw the football, it's a very small margin for error. So what Dak has done, even though the overall production's been lower, is relatively impressive. And in terms of your question about who's going to step up, right? Jalen Tolbert, to me, is a primary candidate because when we were out there in training camp, Dak said, this is the guy that I've worked the most with. And usually the guy I worked the most with ends up having a big year, and that was because Ceedee had his holdout and Brandon Cooks being older. He had his vet rest days in camp leading up to the season. So I would say Jalen Tolbert for sure. Ryan Flanoy, the 6th-round pick, to your point, he's a candidate. We don't know what he's going to be, but maybe he has a breakout game. But I would say Jalen Tolbert far and away would be number one option to step up.
And this is the time when injuries happen, like McCarthy says, it's the NFL, it's the next man up. Dak talked about that as well. So when we switch over to the defensive side, that's where the Cowboys are currently very much banged up. One positive thing that we heard yesterday was rookie corner Kalen Carson was limited but was going to be returning. And then today he was also limited for his second day, and McCarthy seemed like he was really didn't have a way of being sure if he was going to play or not going to play. So I think that is going to be another big concern. So now your secondary is banged up, and then obviously you don't have Micah Parsons, you don't have DeMarcus Lawrence up there. You're putting a lot of faith in Marshawn Nealon. So there's going to be a lot of new faces on defense this game.
And you didn't even mention Trayvon Diggs popped up on the injury report this afternoon with an ankle injury. He was limited, so he did practice today, but we saw Kalen Carson and Diggs walking off to the side with Al Harris, the DB's coach and assistant head coach, during the open media portion. So it's unclear how much of the drills and team drills they went through because we only see the first few minutes of practice. But yeah, both those guys, I would imagine Diggs would play. We spoke to him yesterday, and he was talking about being more of an on-field leader, so that indicates to me he's anticipating playing. And Kalen Carson, your point, he sounds like a game-time decision, so who knows?
Yeah, and I think the good thing for them, even though Justin Fields is coming off a career-high game and he's gained some confidence, this seems like a matchup that is doable even with a Cowboys defense that is banged up.
I would agree with you. He's been great at running the ball. He's number 2 in quarterback design runs this year. Yes, he had the big game because they were trailing a lot of that game, so they threw a lot, high numbers, but he's somebody who is still developing as a passer, to your point.
Yeah, well, it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out, but like I said, 2 days, wheels up to Pittsburgh, and the Cowboys are going to be banged up, but they are pretty optimistic in this locker room that they can still get it done. Thank you for joining me. That's it for now. For Garrett, Podell, Briana, Aldridge.